Welcome to my workshop. Today we're creating two rough turn bowls. I have two pieces of wood here. Each will be turned into a bowl blank. They were created when a single log was cut in half to remove the pith. A cardboard template makes it easier to cut the bowl blank and also conveniently marks the center. Okay, I knew this log had a fair bit of spalting in it, but it also looks like it has some rot in it we can see right here. That's unfortunate. I've already made a couple of passes here and taken off two or three slices until I figured out how far the rot went. I laid out, used a compass since I didn't have a template that was the right size, and I laid out a circle on top, and I'm following that circle around now. Hopefully, when we get this finished, we will find that there's no checking or any more rot. It looks like this bowl blank's going to work out, but I think we'll set it aside for today and only rough out one bowl. Yeah, it looks pretty good. Using a one-way drive center here because we're going to turn the bowl blank between centers. The purpose of doing this is that I want to try to minimize the amount of wood I lose. The two sides of this bowl blank aren't parallel to each other, and so I'm going to jiggle it back and forth and changing where the centers sit on the bowl until I can eliminate the maximum amount of wood that I'm going to lose. Starting to look pretty good here. Did you notice in the last clip when I stored the tool key, I just placed it on the front of the lathe? Did this using a rare earth magnet. Makes it really convenient. Now we're going to bring this bowl blank into round so that we can start turning it a little quicker. Using a 5/8 bowl gouge here to just knock off the edge. Lathe speed's not huge because it's still a fair bit out of round. With that done, we've repositioned the tool rest and we're knocking the corner down. Not really worried about shape at this point, just kind of going straight across the corner, taking some fairly aggressive cuts here. Rotating into the cut with my hip at the beginning and then driving the tool with my backhand across the cut. Notice here as I bring the tip of the tool in by pushing my hip against the back of the gouge and then flattening the base here using the same type of technique. I'm pivoting the tool into the face of the wood using my hip. As opposed to using a push cut, which would be cutting through end grain, this just allows me to get rid of that wood in a big hurry. Do a pull cut to flatten things out to the end here. Now we're getting ready to make the tenon, and I'm said I use a 2 1/4 inch on my rough turns. That allows for some shrinkage and to become slightly oval and have enough room left to turn it into a proper tenon later. Marking with a pencil here, ignore the inside line. That was a little oopsie. This line will get turned away, but it's just to remind me of where the face of the jaws are going to sit. Doing a push cut here, and I'm starting now to worry about a little bit about shape, and I'm rowing the boat, so to speak, with the tool. Switching over to a pull cut because I could no longer get my tool in to cut close to the tenon because of the tailstock. And there's that piece that I'd marked, which I knew I was going to remove, cutting right back to where the line is for the tenon, the outside line there. Flattening out the area that's going to be the flat part for where the chuck holds. And now I'm using a pull cut to work that corner down a little bit. I'm going to put a little bit of a OG relief to create a foot here in a moment. And so I'm using the nose of the tool, just digging a little bit away first, getting ready here. Now we're going to use the tip and we're going to go in, rotate the tool away from me, and then pull towards me to create a little bit of a dip. And that'll give us our foot when we're finished. It doesn't have to be finished here, but I like to put that on the rough turning so that I know how much wood I've got later when I'm starting to do the finished turning. A bunch of pull cuts here to give the shape. And now I'm going to switch to a shearing cut. And this is probably not needed on a rough turn bowl blank, but it is good practice. Checking for flatness there because the face of the chuck's going to go against it. I'm using the Glenn Lucas tool here, and the first thing I'm worrying about is making sure where the chuck's going to sit is flat. So I'm using the interface of that tool, the one that was closest to the bowl bottom. And with that reasonably flat, I'm switching over and using the other side to create the dovetail. I'm not using both sides to cut at the same time. I'm just slowly working the undercut of the dovetail here. Check again. Turn away the nub here at the bottom of the bowl. If I left it as large as it was when we reversed this into the chuck, it would no longer fit. Okay, we're ready to reverse the bowl. Pulling it out, we no longer need our drive center that we've been turning with all this time. Give it a good push so that that surface is flat against the jaws, and bring the jaws down nice and snugly. Now the same thing we did on the bowl bottom where it was uneven. This top side, if we recall, it wasn't parallel to the other side, and so we've got to take off some wood here to get things to even up. Using the same technique, just nibbling in here, pushing in by rotating my hip, forcing the face of the tool in. This allows me to take off a substantial amount of wood without having to do a push cut across the surface. Okay, smoothing things up here a little bit. I want to have a reasonably smooth surface to try to draw my pencil line on. And figuring out the overall diameter, and I'm going to mark off 10% of that for the bowl thickness at this point. And then put that line all the way around. Darken it up so I can see where I'm working to. And now, as opposed to doing push cuts to go across here, I'm just going to remove a bulk of the wood using that same technique. I'm using the nose and the wing, being careful not to get a catch here. Rotating the tool in, not with my forehand, but by using my hip on the back of the tool. And working my way down. I'm leaving the ridges because I want to use those as I move into push cuts. Okay, we're going to remove the nub from the center now that we've pushed the tailstock away. Measuring for depth. Getting understanding of how much I have to do. Now I'm using the ridges as the starting point for each one of my push cuts. And here I'm building a little bit of muscle memory, trying to get the same flow each time down, taking off a consistent amount, or visualizing where I want the tool to go, how deep I want it at any point, and trying to maintain that flow all the way through. And we do a bunch of these as we move deeper through. Yeah, giving it a hand test here, and again doing an eyeball on the depth. I determined I had some depth left to go and a little bit more thickness there, so I wasn't finished yet. Making another cut here with a freshly sharpened gouge. Yeah, it's cutting much better than it was a few cuts back. Trying to follow all the way through. I determined that I need to take a little bit more off in the edge towards the bottom and the bottom. So I'm trying to have the thickness increase as I came down. Just carrying that through carefully, slowing down, moving the point down towards center. waiting for it. Giving it another field test. And it's always good, even at this point, to pull out the calipers. In general, you want to have the bottom a little bit thinner than the top so that the bottom doesn't tear the top apart as it's drying. Again, determined it was still a little thick at the bottom, so making a couple more passes here, fine-tuning it. And a very light pass here. I noticed a couple of little bumps and it was still a little thick, so didn't want to go right back to the rim, but started a little ways down, just picked up the cut. Very gingerly going through. Yeah, one little bump, didn't like. And there's our finished product. And this we will take and apply some log sealer to, and it will sit for at least a year out on my outdoor shelf in the shade and wait to be finished turned. Thanks for taking the time today to join me in my workshop. If you've enjoyed this, please consider subscribing.